Oh, Devin Haney. Ooh, uncomfortable. Devin Haney put out a statement after his loss to Ryan Garcia. And he just said, hey, I'm down to do it again if we could find a situation where both of us made weight. And he got out. That was it. In and out. Then you get these guys that run the dirt sheets. You know, he's finally spoke up. He's finally spoken up. He's finally made a statement. Weird, right? I mean, that is just as weird of a headline as though we were all waiting to hear phrases. The whole thing's weird. But you get where Devin Haney could be so short. He could be so short and he could make his statement in those couple of sentences to say he's down to do it again when they both can make weight. That's his statement. And the reason he can do it so quickly is the story that he's attempting to tell and the excuse that he's attempting to give. The justification for taking a beating to an alcohol-induced drug addict is that the alcohol-induced drug addict had 3.5 pounds at the time of weigh-ins. He was in violation of the contract. He did not honor the contract. He did not go through the same level of sacrifice and discipline. He went into that contest with an upper hand. That is what he said. That is what his words meant. And that is why he put that message out to the universe. Now, there is a very interesting stat out there on how many times a guy that has an infraction, how many times a guy who broke the rules wins, and it's overwhelming. By the way, I only know this, I'm trying to think the year, was it 2008? In the UFC, we were seeing a lot of low blows. I mean, it was just fight and fight of low blows. Low blows, finger to the eye. Low blows, finger to the eye. To the point that the referees were having to stop the action. Now, very seldomly does the ref ever throughout history call an illegal technique illegal. He will just stop the action and let the recovery time. And that's one that I've always begrudged just personally. When you have a sport that has as few of rules as mixed martial arts, you've got to enforce those rules. If you stop the action because somebody was poked in the eye, for example, it was bad enough that we're going to stop it and give time. You give a point. If you kick somebody in a low blow and it was bad enough that we're going to stop the action for up to 5 minutes, you do a point. And you're going to have a really hard time finding those examples where you ever saw a point taken for either. And they're out there, and frankly, there's plenty of them out there. But they are grossly lopsided when compared to how many times one of those infractions, an eye poke or a low blow, was done, was observed to be done, where action was stopped, recovery time was allowed, but you didn't see a point taken. Okay. Now, in 2008, and the reason that I remember this so well, we had a narrative going around about low blows. Dana had come out himself and spoke to all of us at a fighter summit. And the narrative and the way one article after the next, one event after the next, is so-and-so was hurt due to this low blow and or the infraction with the eye, but had to get up and had to go on. Had to get up and go on while now injured and now at a deficit. They had to, because if they didn't, they would break Dana's most coveted. You must be interesting, you must be exciting, and the show must go on. And so that's why Dana came and talked to us himself and said, hey guys, I keep hearing this stuff. I just want to make this really clear with you. I do not expect you to go on. In fact, I'm always a little surprised when somebody does go on. In fact, let me share a statistic with you. And Dana had the number, and it was only one time. Only one time had somebody been fouled and get up from the foul, get up, continue, and come back to win. And Dana's the one that shared that with us. said, I do not expect you to go on if you can't go on. I do not expect you to let an advantage. I do not expect the person who broke the rule to then benefit from the broken rule. In fact, only one guy has ever come up from an infraction like this and got his hand raised. So I'm sharing that, and I admit that it's an older rule. But I do want to share that with you. And in Devin Haney's case, boy, I'm not sure if you would have asked him ahead of time, right? Like a genie pops out of the bottle with a magic wand. You go, hey, Devin, I heard about that $500,000 per pound clause you got in your contract. How many pounds do you want me to make your opponent be overweight? How many millions of dollars do you want? I know that you want to win first and foremost, and I know you're making millions and millions of dollars. But what I'm asking, do you want him to become an overweight, take some of his money too? Really get into his head, get into his mind a little bit, make him and everybody else question how serious he took this and how hard he trained in comparison to you, the golden boy that did everything right? And Haney would say, hell yes, Mr. Genie out of the bottle. Make him 4 pounds overweight, get me $2 million. Make sure the world knows I took this serious and I'm a professional, and he is none of those things. Now, when the fight ended, Haney says he's willing to do it again. Well, what if Haney would have won? What if Haney would have won but known that it was at a disadvantage? Would he be willing to do it again? Would he be saying the same thing? How is it that we, the audience, would want to see that fight again? I mean, if we were to want to see the fight again, we're going to have a good, solid lack of understanding. So that we're in conversations to debate with people as we're building up and getting anticipation to fight night for the rematch, that we don't know who's going to win. That it could go Haney's way. Well, what argument are we going to make? What did you see within the fight that if Haney can correct, he has a good chance to change the outcome? Well, because before you say, we've already heard from Haney himself. And it wasn't to be faster. It wasn't to slip more. It wasn't to not fall for a fake. It wasn't to drop your hands when he goes to the body. It wasn't any of those things. He has already said what he needs. He needs those 3.4 pounds to be off his opponent at the time of weigh-ins. That's what he needs. He's already let you know. The outcome to this contest was determined and decided when he missed weight. And it's an interesting spot. It's a very interesting spot. These guys are prize fighters. They fight for the money. They just can't say it, right? A politician has a big ego. The politician runs to serve that ego, but he can't say it. He has to hide it and do a better job hiding it than his opponent. Convince you more than the opponent convinces you, I'm running for you, I'm one of you. And the fighter that wants to take your money has to convince you this is about my dream, about my drive, it's about stopping him, the evil force. I am the force of good, he is the force of evil. Evil won this time, the cheater, the one that violated. But next time will be different because we're going to stop him from cheating and violating. It's like, well, are you really? Are you really going to stop him next time? Like if next time comes around and he's 3.4 pounds over, are you going to refuse to face him? Or are you going to take the millions of dollars like you did this time and then go out and compete and to the victor goes the spoils? I mean, it's one of those things. It's one of those things that gets very weird. Where if you are doing everything right, you would have the high hands. You would be the high and mighty. You would be the one in the driver's seat. You normally would, but you can't do anything unless this rule-breaking bad guy gives you the opportunity. Because the rule-breaking bad guy has won again. He has won the headlines. He has won the money. He has won the fight. He has won between the two of you who is going to get a bigger, higher paying next fight. So what do? How do you handle that? How do you handle that? It would go back to the golden rule that my mother told me. The first time my mother heard me say something out of pocket, the very first time she heard me say something that wasn't the right thing to say, she said, son, if you don't have the right thing to say, don't say anything at all. And Haney, trying to tell a story that he should get a rematch because the rules were not followed. You'd have to go, well, what rules? I would assume the most recent rule is the most important rule. Would we agree on that? Like if we were in a speed zone and it was 80 miles an hour, but they changed it, said, whoa, hey, and they put 65 miles an hour up. And then a few years later, said, nah, it's too fast. They put 55 mile an hour up. And you pull through there at 70 miles an hour. I don't believe you could go into court and say, well, that's what the sign said. I was just doing what the sign said. And then Your Honor saying, no, but that's the old sign. It's the new current sign. And you guys would understand that, right? But I want you to understand that. I want to be agreeable on this. Because if it's the most recent rule, and that's the rule that we most follow, okay, great. Because the most recent agreement was that I'm going to give you $1.5 million and I'm going to weigh in at this. So therefore, when you shook hands and you said yes and you took the money and I weighed at that, now the rules were followed. There was no infraction and there was no rule that was broken. So the good guy that tried to look like the victim loses a little bit of ground. And if you don't have the right thing to say in the future, Devin Haney, don't say anything at all.